I want to talk about the Costa because I've been itching and itching and itching to talk about the Costa in this show.
Ah,
Right, you said that you weren't sold on Porsche, right at the beginning, and
no.
okay, Verline, we know about his inconsistencies, and we were wanting to talk about whether or not he is a title contender. Can he be? Because he wasn't. He started great and obviously won both races last season in Diriyah,
Yeah.
but then
Yeah.
faded. Right, De Costa, I thought was nowhere last season. Apart from that amazing move in Cape Town, not much, not much to write home about. And then he starts this season. Verline's on pole. He is nowhere, which can happen in Formula E. But I suppose if Verline's getting into the duels, he should be getting into the duels. And then he goes for a move on Muller and just completely takes him out. I don't know. I don't know if De Costa's got that same pizzazz about him that he did a couple of seasons ago.
I think with Da Costa, it's really hard to say because I think last season he does need to be given a bit of the benefit of the doubt because it was not only a new generation of car for everybody, he also had to get used to a very different team, a very different setup. Nobody runs a team quite like Porsche. You know, they are engineered to win. And when they don't win, as Da Costa found out last season, you know, things turn sour very quickly. And they obviously believe in him because they've made him drop his WEC drive for this season. So, they obviously believe in him. But in a way, this has actually put more pressure on him because, if he doesn't perform in Formula E this year, having been asked to drop a seat elsewhere and a good seat as well, where does that leave him? There's no doubting he is one of the best drivers on the grid. I still think, had he qualified in duels, well, just in general, when he makes the duels or when he qualifies towards the top, he's a contender to win because he's a race driver. He's not a qualifying driver. And we saw actually in Monaco last year. Pascal struggled to make progress, whereas actually Da Costa did really, really well until he obviously got, I think it was the puncture he got.
Yes.
So it was a weird case of he qualified badly. It was as simple as that. And this is why I'm not sold on Porsche because their big thing over the off season in pre-season testing was they have to find some progress over one lap because especially in places like Mexico, qualifying is vital. If you don't qualify well in Mexico, you are not going to challenge for the podium. And unfortunately, this is the case for him, for Jake Dennis, for Norman Nato, who actually I was quite impressed with, to give him some credit. It's now good, really, with Verline winning, Da Costa's got to turn up in Diriyah. He can't now afford to make another silly mistake because his move on Muller was so late. I actually read something. I think he spoke to Formula E Notebook, and basically, I think something happened on the lap before with Nico, which I think might have annoyed him a little bit. But nevertheless, it was that wasn't the move of a Formula E champion. It was late at a corner, which was never going to work when offline. I don't know what they've had done at the circuit over the last few months. It was so dusty. I've not seen, that circuit that dusty, at least for Formula E, I think possibly ever. Which is why you mentioned, Jack, earlier on, the lap times between the 300 kilowatt and the 350, there was literally no difference, which is unheard of. It was almost, I think it was okay with less power this year, but the lap times were slower than last year. Even with less power, the amount of experience they've now got with the cars, we should have been quicker than last year and we weren't. So with Da Costa, it's now a case of he's got to, brush himself down, get up again because, Diriyah is next weekend. And if he goes badly in Diriyah, he's then got 7 weeks to have to think about it, which for him is the worst thing. He needs a good result in Saudi Arabia because otherwise, the rounds then come thick and fast.
But you said he's not a qualifying driver, right? So if he's not a qualifying driver, I feel like in Formula E you need to be a qualifying driver because it's so intense, right? You've got to get into that top four, right? In the group stages, and then you've got to perform in the duels. And if we're saying he's not the best qualifying driver, he's an amazing race driver, and I don't doubt that for 1 second, then all of a sudden Formula E becomes quite a difficult series for him.
I think you've just kind of hit the nail on the head, but in general, Formula E is a difficult series.
Yeah.
There is nothing like it. We've seen this. Formula One is the proclaimed pinnacle of motorsport, of single-seater motorsport, whatever you want to call it. Yet, majority of the time, when an F1 driver comes over to Formula E, we saw it with Giovinazzi, they struggle. they really, really struggle. And actually, I don't really want to say this because some of the stuff that's been said about him has actually annoyed me. Nick De Vries. Okay, he's
Yeah.
technically the first Formula E world champion. He obviously left the series for a year to go and do his 10 races for AlphaTauri. He's come back, and I think too many people expected him to get, not necessarily in the points because the Mahindra powertrain just isn't that good, but be more competitive. But actually, it's going to take him time. He's not a rookie as such, but he's not. Yes, he's done some testing in the Gen 3 machinery before he left. He's as much of a newbie almost in regards to the Gen 3 machinery as Deruvula.
Yeah.
There's
But
not.
also, but also, like, he didn't get as much testing as he wanted to because
Exactly.
obviously the fire in Valencia, they missed out on by not having one car, and then by the time they took their car to do the extra testing that they missed out on, it absolutely chucked it down, and it was basically a washout. So
They
Nick
lost
still
pretty much the entire
really a
time.
rookie. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, and this is now for him the massive problem with the calendar is that you've got especially with De Vries and Deruvula. Okay, so we've had Mexico, which all right, let's say that's a bit of a test for them. I don't think anybody really expected much from Deruvula in his first weekend, because it's such a hard sport. But you've now got 2 races in Diriyah to try and make some more progress, because after that, you're not going to get any real driving as such, at least in a competitive environment for 7 weeks. That's a long, long time for a racing driver to not be racing.
Yeah. No, it is, and it'll be really interesting to see how the Costa recovers because obviously he's got the machinery to recover. He's got a chance to win the championship.